We used to be able to drive, although I don't, across the wide, pool-sheeted pasture below the house to the hot, empty beach and park in the starved shade of the acacias that print those tiny yellow flowers. Then there were men with tapes and theodolites who measured the wild, uneven ground. I watched the doomed acres where yet another luxury hotel will be built with ordinary people fenced out.
This excerpt from the poem The Acacia Trees signaled the start of a press conference in which the Saint Lucia National Trust continued their attempts to raise public awareness of the implications of an ongoing development in the north of the island. The poem was written by Saint Lucia's now deceased Nobel laureate Derek Walcott, whose extensive body of work speaks to the need for preservation of the island's natural and cultural heritage. The Trust has been steadfast in their attempts to sensitize and mobilize the public as it relates to a number of developments which could have negative repercussions for the environment, local livelihoods, and of course our heritage. Despite these attempts, it often appears that the general public does not share this passion as it relates to sustainable development. During a recent press conference, I questioned the Trust as to why they believe Saint Lucians often display this apathy, and more importantly, why should the general public care?
We certainly need to continue to do a lot more. All agencies need to work much harder in terms of raising the awareness and appreciation of what we have here in Saint Lucia and the finite nature of our heritage, our assets. That said though, I think quite often, and we're seeing it a lot more these days, where there is some sort of a juxtaposing between development and conservation, as if these two cannot be mutually inclusive. There has been a buzzword, and it's been existing for many decades now, and it's called sustainable development. Sometimes people are not aware, sometimes they feel powerless, sometimes they feel that their voice cannot be heard, and they want to certainly perhaps depend on organizations like the Trust, like the Archaeological and Historical Society, to speak up on their behalf. And we accept that responsibility. We know that it is certainly part of our mandate as organizations, and we certainly, however, encourage other persons to use their individual voices, use their other collective voices to ensure that development is right for ourselves.
Councillor Alison Gajada believes that this points to a wider issue of Saint Lucians not being allowed to actively participate in our own national development.
As we speak, there is the issue of people involvement is really being sidelined in a number of areas. And I speak to on the economic aspect, the trade aspect. We have right now issues being dealt with, impacts of Article 164 as a result of lack of involvement, of discussion of people. We have pieces of legislation being put forward, again, without the adequate consultation, involvement of people.
According to Gajada, there appears to be a general fear of getting people involved.
How can we develop our people if we do not respect their knowledge enough? Maybe 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, it served our purpose well. In the past generation, we've spent too much money educating our young people, sending our young people on scholarships to return to their homeland, to work, to silence them. It is a different era. We cannot do things as we used to before.
Poet and activist Kendall Hippolyte stressed that there is also a role which the local artistic community can play in raising public consciousness.
One of the ways in which artists can help, and I'm taking this opportunity to reach out to artists, is in making people realize how much this can matter to them, and to speak to people in the language of the arts that people understand. How do we get the public more involved? Let's reach out to the artists.
To help underscore Hippolyte's point, I chose to leave you, the viewer, with another excerpt from the poem The Acacia Trees.
The new makers of our history profit without guilt and are, in fact, prophets of a policy that will make the island a mall. and the breakers grin like waiters, like taxi drivers, these new plantations by the sea. A slavery without chains, with no blood spilt, just chain link fences and signs, the new degradations.